I was sitting on the hood of the car facing the house with the number 128 when the door suddenly opened, and out came she. Her face turned pale at the sight of me. She couldn't look me in the eye, looking away when I stood up. Instinctively, he raised his arms defensively. "Don't worry," I reassured them, "you're both not worth my time." With that, I got back in the car and drove away, thinking about the long chain of events that led to this tense meeting. I first met Jim when his family became our new neighbors. At the age of 8, he was my age and the only boy in our neighborhood, although there were several girls our age. Among them, Jim and I quickly became close friends. By the end of 4th grade, we were as close as twin brothers. We played sports together, joined baseball leagues, and soccer teams. I always had his back, and he always had mine. If someone was teasing Jim, he was teasing me, and vice versa. From that moment on, we were inseparable until high school. I first met Laura in 10th grade, and we started dating. By senior year, we were still dating. Our friends Jim and Annabelle Spears also became a couple, and we often went on double dates together. At the prom, Laura and I spent a special moment in one room, and Jim and Annabelle in another. After graduation, our paths parted. Jim decided to enroll in the Navy, not college. Annabelle was upset by his departure and resentful of him but promised to wait until he found a permanent job before joining him. Laura and I both went to college. I went to Eastern Michigan University to study civil engineering, and Laura went to the University of Michigan to study information technology. The two universities were only half an hour away from each other in Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti, which allowed us to maintain our relationship. But several times, Laura canceled our plans to go on a date with someone she met at the University of Michigan, keeping it a secret from me. I got this information from friends who also studied at Michigan. They informed me that on those evenings when I couldn't come, she was seeing someone. One evening, I arrived just in time to see her get into a car with some guy and drive away. I followed them to a restaurant on Ann Arbor Road, waited 10 minutes for them to sit down, and then went inside. To my horror, I found that they were sitting in a booth in the back, not opposite but close to each other. He hugged her, and she seemed pleased, showing no signs of discomfort or attempts to create distance between them. Fortunately, there was an empty booth at the opposite end of the hall where I was able to sit down without attracting Laura's attention. It was only when the waitress asked about my drink order and Laura heard my voice that she turned to face me. I pretended to be interested in the menu, avoiding direct eye contact with her, yet I saw surprise in her eyes when she abruptly pulled her hand away from the guy she was next to and distanced herself from him. The expression on his face at that moment clearly indicated his confusion, his silent doubt of her actions. From this look, it was clear that their meeting was not a one-time, not the second, and not the third. They had been in a relationship for some time, long enough for him to embrace her calmly and without hesitation. Despite the fact that I was not privy to their conversation, Laura's anxious glances in my direction did not go unnoticed. I casually leaned back in my chair and pretended not to notice her concern. After finishing my meal, I left without giving any sign that I was watching Laura and drove home. The next day, which fell on Friday, Laura and I planned a date night consisting of dinner and going to the cinema. But when the time came, I didn't go anywhere without any explanations or excuses. I turned off my phone and got comfortable with a fascinating book. I attended a party at the Delta Phi House on Saturday night and had a great time. I met a stunning brunette named Robin, and we shared a few dances. She even gave me her phone number and asked me to call her the next day. I was engrossed in preparing for Monday's classes when I was interrupted by the doorbell. I looked through the peephole and saw that it was Laura. I opened the door, and she walked past me into the room. She turned to me and demanded, "Where were you on Friday night, and why didn't you answer the phone?" After closing the door, I turned to her and asked, "Which question do you want me to answer first?" "Don't delay, Rob." "What's the matter?" I replied, "Okay, I'll answer them in the order I like best. First, let me explain where I've been. Mostly at home, but I went to a frat party on Saturday night." "Why didn't you answer the phone?" "It's simple. I didn't pick up the phone because you didn't call. But it was my fault because I turned it off. By the way, where were you on Friday night?" "I was at home, ordered pizza, and read a great book." "Why didn't you call and say you couldn't come?" "I thought you had plans with your boyfriend." Wait, which die? You're my boyfriend, Rob. Who was that man you were with at the restaurant on Thursday night? He's just an acquaintance of mine. We're not in love with each other. Sitting so close, leaning against him when he hugs you, isn't it romantic? What would you call it then? It's not like that. We're just friends. If you don't see anything wrong, why didn't you come over and say hello? Why didn't you invite me to join you and introduce me to your friend? Could you sit down and have a little chat with me? Maybe you didn't do it because you didn't want him to know who I was. Why didn't you come up and talk to me yourself if that bothers you? I wanted to see how you would react. Why did you want to see my reaction? Because I've heard too much about how often you date other guys when I'm not around. I heard that you dated other guys on the nights when you were supposed to go on dates with me but canceled them at the last moment. I wanted to see how you would behave with another guy. I'm not your property, Rob. We never agreed to be just the two of us. That's what I thought, Laura. I gave you a ring and a sweater with a letter as a sign that we are together. A sweater with a letter and a ring, is that supposed to mean something? It's so immature, Rob. Maybe it was during my school years, but I don't remember you returning these things to me when we graduated from high school. You didn't mention that our relationship ended as soon as we left school. I don't mind if you don't feel obligated, then neither will I. At a recent party, I met a nice girl who gave me her phone number. Laura's expression turned sour, and she growled, "Great." She quickly left. When she left, I thought that she wasn't making excuses, didn't promise not to repeat her actions anymore, and didn't try to convince me that I was the only one for her. She had gone beyond the thinking of a schoolgirl. Now she saw herself as a mature woman, and something needed to change. It wasn't an easy decision after being together for so long, but it's better to sort out your thoughts now than later. The days passed with homework until on Thursday I finally got in touch with Robin. After a short conversation, we set up a date for Friday evening. I picked her up, we had dinner, and then instead of going to the movies as planned, she offered to attend a party she'd heard about. The party was held in an apartment in Belleville, and we arrived at about 8 o'clock. To my surprise, as soon as we entered, we immediately found ourselves face to face with Laura and the man she had met the night before. "Oh no," I squealed. "What happened?" Robin asked. "They are," I replied, gesturing at Laura and the man. "Do you know them?" "I know her." "Do you know Miss Piggy?" "Miss Piggy?" "That's her nickname." "Why is she called that?" She acts like a real pig. That's why people call her Miss Piggy." "Are you sure she's promiscuous?" "What else can you call a woman who is in a serious relationship but still seeks the attention of other men when her partner is not around?" "Are you absolutely sure about this information?" "More precisely, as far as her reputation is concerned, I can't say for sure myself, but I have heard about it from several people who claim to have communicated with her." "How do you know her?" "I was actually the person she was planning to marry until last Thursday when I caught her with the one she's with now." "Oh my God. Will there be fireworks today?" "Unfortunately, no. We broke up on Sunday. Now it's official, I'm free." "What is the probability that I would have heard from you if Thursday had not happened?" "It is negligible, but Thursday happened anyway, and here we are, ready to enjoy life. So let's take advantage of it." She took my hand and led me across the room to introduce me to the owner, Laura, who had been frozen in the corner when we appeared. She noticed me and looked surprised. Is it because she didn't expect to see me at such a party, or because she was caught with a new guy again? Robin led me to a tall man and a blonde woman. They introduced themselves as Gary, an artist, and we had small talk for a while. After that, Robin dragged me out for a drink. The basement had been turned into a recreation room and a dance floor. Robin and I spent the night dancing and drinking, meeting new people along the way. But every time I caught Laura's eye, her expression remained unreadable to me. At about 11, Robin announced that it was time for her to leave as she had important plans for Saturday. On the way back, Robin noticed your ex often looked in your direction during the evening. She was shocked to see me there. I don't think so. She probably didn't like seeing you with someone else. That's how she ended our relationship, maybe, but she's not as happy about the breakup as you're suggesting. She may have to get used to the situation. Does this mean that I can expect to see you more often, or are you planning to date other girls as well? Personally, I prefer to focus on one girl. I really enjoyed your company tonight, and I would like to ask you out again if you agree. You'll be the only girl I'm dating. And if I'm not ready to devote myself to one person, just let me know, and I'll find someone else to date. If she refuses, I'll contact you again to see how things are going. If you continue to refuse, I will continue to look for another girl who will be more open to this idea. I appreciate your desire to try. How about tomorrow night? That sounds great. After walking her to the door and saying goodnight to her, when I turned to leave, she asked me to stop. When I turned back to her, she admitted that she doesn't usually kiss on a first date, but this time she decided to make an exception. And with that, she kissed me. See you tomorrow, she said, and went home. When I got home, it turned out that Dad was still awake, and he told me Laura called. She's very upset. It's too late to call back. I'll do it in the morning. The next day, I overslept as usual. On Saturday morning, when I finally woke up and went to the kitchen for coffee, Mom said, Laura has already called twice this morning. I'll call her back after the first cup of coffee. Are you okay? Mom asked. We're not together anymore. Does she know about this? She asked it because she has made a decision. At that moment, the phone rang. Mom picked up the phone and said, It's for you. This is Laura. I picked up the phone, and she asked, Why didn't you call? I explained it was too late to call when I got home last night, and today I just got out of bed. She replied, That's not what I meant. Why didn't you call me last night and ask me out on our usual Friday date? We discussed this last Sunday, Laura. You said that we don't have an exclusive relationship, and you decided to date other guys. I told you that if you were dating others, then I would do the same, and you stormed out of the house. This is not what I wanted, Rob. You should have understood that. Don't make excuses, Laura. You've already been on a date with that guy I saw you with last Thursday. I wasn't with him, Rob. I came to the party alone, and coincidentally, he was there too. Okay, Laura. If you want to believe that, it doesn't change anything for me. I'm starting to hear rumors about you and your actions, for example, about how you got the nickname Miss Piggy. I don't know where you're getting your information from, Rob, but it's not true. Why should I believe that it's not true if I saw you with someone else in a restaurant? And I find it hard to believe that you accidentally bumped into him at a party. He was too close to you and hugged you when I came up. You're not interested in an exclusive relationship with me, and I'm not interested in being one of your many options. Could you return the ring and sweater along with the letter? I understand that for a mature person like you, these gestures may seem insignificant, but for me, they are of great importance. See you later, I said, and hung up. Mom noticed your statement sounded convincing. She came to the conclusion that my attention was not enough for her, and as I said before, I have no desire to be just another face in the crowd. I started spending a lot of time with Robin. Meanwhile, Jim wrote to me about his life every 2 weeks. He graduated from the camp and was now undergoing special training. He joined the Navy Construction Battalion, also known as the Navy SEALs, where he mastered the skills of construction and destruction. Although he didn't ask about Annabelle, I also tried not to mention her in my answers. I knew he wouldn't want to hear about her life. Less than a week after he left, Annabelle started dating a guy she met at a party. Just a month later, he left, and she moved in with a man from her job. 3 months later, the relationship ended, and she began living with a man she met when he towed her car to the store. There were rumors that he forced her to participate in questionable activities with his friends. Suddenly, Annabelle disappeared without a trace. We only found out about her whereabouts after I received a letter from Jim, who was trained and served in Norfolk. Upon arrival, he was sent to find Annabelle, and she came to him. He expressed a desire for me to become his best man, but admitted that he did not have time to prepare. Completing this task as soon as possible would allow them to get housing at the base faster. My heart sank at the thought of the possible betrayal he might face, knowing that perhaps another man was already waiting for her as soon as he left. When I was born, my grandparents set up a college tuition fund for me so I never had to worry about money. I had enough money to pay for my tuition and rent an apartment off campus, and I could live comfortably in junior years. Robin and I decided to live together, which gave me an idea of what family life could be like. I treasured every moment. Over time, I began to think about making our stay permanent despite my doubts. Robin showed no signs of wanting to end our relationship. She didn't show any signs of concern until I suggested she start looking for an engagement ring. It was then that she revealed her plan to return to California after graduating from university and marry her childhood sweetheart, who was currently in England on a Rhodes Scholarship. We both knew about each other's romantic relationship. He knew about you, and I knew about the English woman he was staying with. Realizing that it is impossible for two young, healthy people to refrain from intimacy for a long time, we decided to build an open relationship. "It shouldn't affect us in any way, Rob," I remember her saying. I didn't immediately feel the effects, but they definitely affected me. It all came down to the fact that I abruptly moved from a romantic relationship to a platonic friendship. The problem was that I didn't find pleasure in just hanging out with friends. I craved something deeper than just physical intimacy. As a result, Robin and I gradually drifted apart. Almost 4 months after Robin ended our romantic relationship, she asked me about my comfort, and I spoke frankly about my feelings. "Forgive me, my love. Sometimes I wish Alex wasn't so dear to me so I could be the one you want. If it wasn't for Alex, you'd be the one I need," she said. "Thank you," I replied. "So, what should we do now? Shall we flip a coin to decide who stays and who leaves?" "There's no need for that. I always knew this moment would come, and my mom still hasn't found someone to rent my room to. She decided it was better to leave it to me. I will stay in until I turn 40 or until she has grandchildren." "So, you stay, and I'm leaving. Are we still going to be friends?" "Always," she hugged me. I returned home for a week, and on Friday evening, as I was sitting in my room writing an article that was supposed to be submitted next week, my mother called out to me from downstairs. "Rob, someone has come to see you." I went downstairs and saw Mom chatting with Laura. Mom looked at me and went into the kitchen, leaving Laura and me alone. "Hi, Rob," she greeted me. "Hi, Laura," I replied. "How are you?" she asked. "SOSO, but I hope that everything will get better," I replied. "Robin called me and told me you were free again," she said. "If I hurry up, I can be first in line," Laura explained. "Why do you want to be first in line?" I asked. "Why do you even have to be first in line? If I hadn't made a stupid mistake, none of this would have happened. Robin would never have appeared in your life. I don't want to stand in line, Rob. I just want to get back to where my real place is, to where we belong." Raising her left hand, she confessed, "I never gave you the ring back." My cool ring adorned her left ring finger. "Alice Johnson is having a party tonight. Will you take me with you?" She showed me the ring at the party, and when I asked her about it, she said, "Just so everyone knows that I have a right to you, baby. I brought you back, and I want everyone to know about it," she said. The unexpected moment came after the party, during the car ride home. She was silent, looking out the passenger side window. When we arrived at her house, I suggested that we go in search of an apartment together. On Saturday, I noted, renting an apartment would be more profitable than living in motels for a long time. "Are you suggesting that I move in with you?" she asked. That thought definitely crossed my mind. "What time is it?" "About 9 o'clock. "Great." Laura and I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment halfway between Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti, turning the second bedroom into an office with Laura's computer desk and mine. About a month after moving in, Jim returned home for a 30-day vacation, and he and Annabelle spent a lot of time with us. Jim and Annabelle seemed to get along great, so maybe my initial doubts about her turned out to be unfounded. When she left 3 weeks after Jim returned to his duties, Annabelle unexpectedly arrived. Jim was seconded to Iraq, and Annabelle, who was looking forward to his return to base, did not wait for him. Instead, she stayed with the guy she lived with when she visited Jim in Norfolk for 2 weeks. 3 weeks later, she was spotted with her ex-boyfriend, which again sparked rumors about wild parties she allegedly threw at his apartment. I considered approaching her, but Laura convinced me not to. She said it was none of our business, and as far as we understood, Jim and Annabelle have an open relationship. I have heard that in the army, it is customary for both spouses to agree to another relationship during a long separation, she explained. But it doesn't look like Jim will agree to that. So, what are you planning to do? Should I tell him? He adores her and will not be happy if he is told that she is unfaithful. He may even accuse you of ruining his life. It's better to let Jim handle this himself. Jim returned from Afghanistan just in time to be by my side as best man at my wedding to Leroy. After that, he and Annabelle went to Norfolk for the rest of the service. As soon as he was demobilized, they returned home, and Jim found a job at a construction company, driving heavy machinery. Time passed quickly, and Jim and Annabelle became regular guests at our house, visiting us at least once every 2 weeks. Their relationship seemed strong, and there were no signs that there were any problems between them. Laura's theory turned out to be correct when Jim's company won a contract to lay a pipeline in Alaska. Harsh conditions at the construction site forced Jim to leave his wife Annabelle at home for the duration of the 4-month project. Suspicions arose when a week later, Annabelle was spotted in a motel room with Gary Mellows, the owner of the company. To make matters worse, Gary's car was often seen parked in Jim's driveway in the evenings. When the Alaska project ran into complications and was extended for another 2 months, the situation only got more complicated. Laura and Annabelle had an appointment with the same doctor on the day Annabelle received the upsetting news that she was 7 weeks pregnant, and her husband Jim had been missing for more than 3 months. Laura found herself in the doctor's office, learning about this news from 2 nurses who worked at the clinic and had previously studied with them. Knowing that Laura was close to Annabelle, the nurses asked her how she thought Jim would react to the news. Patient confidentiality takes a back seat when it comes to spreading gossip among friends. After thinking about it, she confidently stated, "Jim will never know. If my assumptions are correct, Annabelle will have an abortion, and Jim won't even be home when it happens." But things didn't go as planned. Someone whom Laura did not dissuade informed Jim about the situation. Jim hurried home, rented a car, and parked unnoticed on the next street. He waited patiently for Gary's car to pull up to the entrance and watched them enter the house. After waiting 15 minutes for Gary and Annabelle to get down to business, he entered the house with a digital camera in his hands, ready to capture the lovers in the act. 15 minutes after he started filming, an ambulance arrived and took Gary to the hospital. The police were ready to arrest Jim until he showed them the photos he had taken. In a series of images taken with a Canon Rebel camera in continuous shooting mode, Mellows could be seen pouncing on Jim. It seemed like he was just trying to take Jim's camera away, but the sequence of events made it clear to Jim that he was being attacked and was acting in self-defense. The police believed Jim's words and left. 20 minutes after they left, Annabelle came out onto the porch with her suitcase and closed the door behind her. The divorce went smoothly, as did the lawsuit against Mellows for alienation of affection. Jim filed a lawsuit against Mellows for harassment, claiming that Mellows hired him with the intention of kicking him out of town so he could move in with his wife. Instead of entering into an out-of-court settlement and avoiding public attention, Mellows decided to fight the case. This decision was not justified, as it turned out in court that he really maintained a relationship with the employee's wife while he was away. The jury sided with Jim's employee and awarded him $1.5 million. After deducting legal fees and taxes, Jim had just over $750,000 left. After he paid off the house, he installed an above-ground swimming pool and bought a new Ford. As soon as the divorce was finalized, Annabelle disappeared, and according to rumors, left town to settle the lawsuit. Mellows had to sell off equipment and property, which led to the loss of business as customers and potential buyers questioned his reliability. Jim had some money left, and he approached me with the idea of starting his own company and taking over the business that Mellows had lost. I took up design, and Jim took up construction work. Laura and I thought carefully about our finances, had discussions, and eventually decided to move on. This led to the creation of the R&J Constructors Partnership. We successfully completed this task, gaining many clients who previously worked with Mellows and even surpassing him in many projects. Jim was proud of our success and made sure everyone knew when we surpassed Mellows. Time passed, and the next 5 years passed quickly. Jim went on dates, but he never found someone he wanted to settle down with forever. He spent a lot of time with Laura and me, and once a week, we usually met with Jim and his girlfriend. Everything was going smoothly. Laura moved up the career ladder, getting the position of regional manager and being considered a strong candidate for the role of vice president. It seemed to me that the situation could not change for the better, and unfortunately, I was right. On Tuesday afternoon, after finishing a meeting with a potential client, Gary Melrose came up to me and offered to buy me a drink. I didn't have any personal complaints about Gary. I think if a girl like Annabelle offered it to a lonely guy like Gary, then he can't be blamed for accepting the gift. I never believed the story that Gary sent Jim out of town for Annabelle. I always knew that Annabelle was promiscuous, so I assumed she probably came to Gary's office to collect Jim's salary and let Gary know that she was lonely because of Jim's absence. Anyway, his problems were with Jim, not me, so I accepted his offer to buy me a drink. As soon as he sat down, he asked, "Maybe you should think about selling it." Why would I even think about it? Let Jim be my partner. Are you kidding? Not really. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but just take a look at this. He opened his briefcase, took out a folder, and handed it to me. I took it, opened it, and was shocked. The first thing I found was a photo of Laura and Jim walking hand in hand to a motel room. Scrolling through the rest of the photos, I saw numerous shots of the couple entering and leaving the room, as well as intimate moments they shared with each other. Glancing at Gary, he confided sheepishly, "I'm really sorry. I was following him to gather information and get revenge." When the private investigator handed me these photos, I had no idea it was your wife. I realized that she belongs to someone else only by the ring on her finger. I hired a private investigator to uncover her identity and gather information for my revenge. Why? You were the one who was guilty. You sent him on a business trip on purpose. No, not on purpose. Yes, I had an affair with his wife, but I never ordered him to leave town to be with her. She came into my office, closed the door, and began to undress. She looked at me for a long time and said, "You sent Jim away, so now you have to take care of me until he gets back." Since I'm not in a relationship, should I have turned down Annabelle's offers? In my opinion, the whole situation can be traced back to Jim's actions. It is well known that Annabelle had a depraved reputation since her school days. Jim should have known about this but did nothing to solve the problem. Now I have to deal with the consequences of his negligence, especially in connection with the trial. I am determined to get justice and fix everything. I'm sorry you're in the middle of all this, Rob. Do you know how long this has been happening to them? According to the findings of a private investigator, at least a year, maybe more. I can't believe it's been going on for so long, and I didn't know about it. If she never gave any reason for suspicion, how could you find out about it? So, what's the reason for wanting to buy out my share? What do you hope to gain by becoming Jim's partner? Think about this. As an equal partner, my opinion has no less weight. If he suggests doing A, I can speak for B. My point of view will always be the opposite of his. In addition, I will understand our pricing strategies and make sure that our prices are higher than those of competitors. I will financially ruin the company, as a result of which Jim will suffer losses. I have carefully assessed the situation, and if the business collapses, we will be able to sell the assets, and I will return most of my investments. I won't make a profit, except for the money I earn at another company by undercharging for the job Jim is fighting for. On the other hand, I won't incur significant losses either. What if Jim decides to make your life miserable until you give up and sell your share to him or someone else? The time he caught me with his wife, my first instinct was to grab the camera from him. He managed to take 3 good pictures before I realized that I had to focus on protecting myself, not the camera. If he tries to do it again, I won't let him off that easy. I'm sure I can handle him if I have to. So what are you going to do? Maybe, but I want to do my own investigation before moving on. After discussing a possible deal, I told him the specific amount that I had in mind. He said it was feasible and asked me to contact him if I decided to make a deal. When I left the meeting, I was overcome by calmness and confusion. How could Laura and Jim have carried out this plan for almost a year without my knowledge? There were no signs that Laura was unhappy with me, no diminution of affection, no signs that our relationship was less than ideal, at least from my point of view. I didn't know what went wrong. Detective Gary's report and photographs seemed legitimate, but I was plagued by doubts. The photos could have been faked, and Gary could have ulterior motives. To make sure of this before taking any action, I decided to conduct further investigation. Back at the office, I contacted a friend who worked at an insurance agency and asked him to recommend reliable investigators in suspicious cases. After receiving this information, I called and made an appointment. 13 days later, after conducting a thorough investigation, I finally felt confident in the truth. It turned out that on Wednesdays, when Jim was supposed to be at the construction site, he met with Laura at the Comfort Inn on Melrose. I wondered how she managed to find time off from work for meetings. As for me, I just needed to decide on my next actions. I already had a clear idea of what I wanted, but I needed to develop a strategy for how to achieve it. After a 2-hour consultation with a lawyer, I had a list of options and limitations, as well as a list of tasks that needed to be solved. Since our breakup was amicable, everything would be divided equally, but I was worried that she would receive a portion of the profits from the sale of my stake in the company. In the end, I reluctantly admitted that the only way out was to cheat. Despite this, she would still receive part of the funds. I made a deal with Mello, agreeing to officially sell him my share in the company for 1/3 of the true purchase price. This amount was transferred to a bank account opened only in my name. The remaining 2/3 were transferred to an offshore account I created. Our agreement stipulated that Mello would not show up at the office and would not occupy my desk until the day I presented the necessary documents to Laura and Jim, Laura about the divorce, citing adultery, and Jim about the sale of a share. Despite living in a state where there is no right of guilt, I had the opportunity to file a lawsuit for adultery. The outcome of the case would depend on the judge appointed to us and might lead to a more favorable division than the standard 50-50 division of property. But for the claim of adultery to stand up in court, I needed concrete evidence. After reviewing the reports of private detectives, it became clear to Gary that they constantly visited the same motel every Wednesday. To gather more evidence, my own detective rented a motel room and bribed the receptionist to put them in this particular room where video surveillance was installed. On Wednesday morning, I called Maria, our secretary, and asked her to tell Jim that I would be absent that morning due to a visit to the dentist. I also asked her to tell me that if I feel unwell after the tooth extraction, I may not be able to come in the afternoon. I understand, boss. I suggest you go home and rest, Maria advised. In my experience, tooth extraction is usually painful when the anesthesia wears off. After Laura left for work, I left the house for a while and returned to find a locksmith who replaced all the locks at 9 o'clock. As soon as he was done, I went to the bank and emptied both accounts in the safe. Although the lawyer advised me to take only half, my mood was devoid of any warmth. I was determined to make life difficult for Laura. Eventually, she would get her share, but only after she started fighting. In addition, I took money out of the business, which in my opinion rightfully belonged to me, and was ready to reimburse her if necessary. Jim had the opportunity to go to court to get the money back, but he didn't do it while I had it. My detective called me at 12:10 a.m. and informed me that the couple had arrived and were staying in room 128. I arrived at the scene, spoke briefly with the detective, and then sat on the hood of the car in front of the license plate and waited for the couple to get out. When they got out, there was a brief altercation, after which I drove off in my car. As I was driving away, a man got out of another car, approached the couple, and handed them some documents. Laura was given a temporary restraining order according to which she had to stay 500 feet away from me. To get this order, I had to resort to deception tactics. I fabricated a story that a third party informed me that Jim and Laura had discussed my insurance and the cost of my business. A decision on whether to make the ban permanent has not yet been made, but it may take several weeks. It was another way to get Laura into trouble. The main thing was that she was not allowed to enter the house without the presence of a person appointed by the court, and I was not going to make it easier for her by providing new keys to the locks. A short note with a mockery was attached to Jim's documents on the seizure of property. You are familiar with how these lawsuits work, aren't you? After leaving the motel, I called Gary to make sure everything was ready for his first day at work. After parking my car in the long-term parking lot at the airport and hiding my mobile phone in the glove compartment, I boarded a flight to Cabo San Lucas. After a week of scuba diving and relaxing on the beach, I returned home and checked my phone. I found that several voice messages were waiting for me. Most of them were from Laura and a few were from Jim. It was amazing to hear him, given our history. No matter what, I decided to leave them both behind and focus on moving forward. Although I was kind of interested in listening to their explanation, in the end, I decided to leave the past in the past and move on. I didn't think about the reasons for their betrayal. Knowing that I would not be home for a week, I called my lawyer. Upon my return, he offered to contact Laura, who tried to contact me twice a day to gain access to the house and pick up my things. Just when I was about to ask him to sort out the situation, I came up with a mischievous idea, another way to make fun of her. I called her and asked about her needs. I want to pick up my clothes and personal belongings, but I can't get into the house with a court-appointed person because I don't have a key, and the court staff forbade me to break down the door, she said. You have nothing to take because I donated all your stuff to Goodwill. I have no desire to keep reminders of you in the house. There's not a single thing of yours left in the house, not even a hair clip. Rob, you had no right to do that. I had every right to do what I did, just as you had the right to betray me. We really need to talk, Rob. It's not what you think. Let's be honest, Laura. I saw what was going on with Jim, and it wasn't just innocent fun. I know the truth. Goodbye, Laura, I said before hanging up. Even though all her things were still in the house, I decided to play with her a little. She'll come for her things eventually, but not anytime soon. I've always had a good relationship with Maria, our secretary, accountant, chef, and bottle washer, so I called her to see how things were going. The situation is not ideal. It certainly does not affect me personally, but it definitely does not benefit the company. It seems that there are constant conflicts between Gary and Jim, and disagreements arise over trifles. Jim issues an order, and Gary refuses to follow it in response. In addition, Jim places an order, and Gary cancels it as soon as Jim is not in the office. These disagreements are preventing important work from being completed as Jim and Gary are busy with their differences. I got tired of it to such an extent that last Friday, I wrote a letter of resignation, but Gary offered to double my salary if I stayed. So in the end, I decided not to leave. On Thursday, there was a physical altercation between them, as a result of which Jim suffered a broken nose, but there was no clear winner. Why did you leave us and side with Gary? I asked her. I told her the whole situation. She was silent for a moment and then declared, now I have another incentive to stay. Which one is it? I asked. I can help Gary. I never liked Jim. He was constantly flirting with me, even though he knew I was engaged. He even said once that he would fire me if I didn't go on a date with him, and we both knew what he meant. When I asked him what he thought you'd say if you fired me, he didn't say anything. You should have told me, I said. Why, she answered. It was a personal problem, and I dealt with it. I'm sorry about what happened between you and Laura, Rob, but there may be a positive aspect to this situation, at least for me. What do you mean? It means you're single again. How do you feel about being harassed? I thought you were engaged. That was until I discovered that this jerk cheated on me the same way he cheated on you, Laura. When did this happen? About 3 weeks ago. Well, darling, if you're interested, I'll give you preference when I start dating again. But it won't happen soon. I don't want to give Laura a reason to use me against herself. I'll be patient, but if you ever get lonely and want someone to join you for dinner, think of me. I appreciate it. Thank you. My phone rang 16 times that day, 14 calls from Laura and 2 from Jim. I couldn't imagine what this jerk could say that I would like to hear. If he called to ask for something, it certainly wasn't about me. I ignored all the calls, returned home, and cooked dinner for myself. I called Gary Mello to see how his plan was going. Everything seems to be going well. I strategically positioned myself at your desk when he entered the office. When he saw me, he looked puzzled and demanded to know why I was in the office and occupying your desk. I grinned and informed him that I was his new partner. Shocked showed on his face as if steam was about to come out of his ears as he studied our agreement. This marked the beginning of our collaboration on a strong note. He requested a tanker truck for the Wilkins site because the front loader and other equipment ran out of diesel fuel. I quickly canceled the order after he left the office. When one of the loaders ran out of fuel, Jim called Allied and expressed his displeasure. He was informed that I had canceled the order and offered to get fuel from another source. Jim came up to me and demanded to know why I canceled the order. I explained that Allied was overcharging, and I was looking for the best price, which resulted in a heated exchange between us. I heard from one bird that you and he had a physical argument. It happened last Thursday. Maybe I was overconfident when I said I could handle him, but I heard him anyway. Anyway, good luck with your plans. After finishing the conversation, I headed to my makeshift office, turned on my computer, and started working on my resume. I planned to start looking for a job the next day. While I was typing on the keyboard, the doorbell suddenly rang. I opened the door and saw Jim standing on the other side. "We need to talk, Rob," Jim replied. "No, you don't need to," I snapped. "It's not my fault, Rob. She seduced me," Jim explained. "I was in a bad mood because of what Annabelle had done to me. I wasn't thinking straight, Rob. I'm sorry, but it's not my fault. I never pursued her. You knew she was my wife. You understood the emotions that could arise, as you once did when you found out the truth about Annabelle. But you didn't think about how your actions would affect me. Didn't you realize that eventually I'd find out the truth, just like you did with Annabelle? Someone else informed you, and now someone has informed me. In my eyes, you're just a jerk. You should have been my friend, and even if I believed Laura was paying attention to you, which I don't, you should have been as honest as I was when Annabelle was paying attention to me. Even if it's true that she made a move and caught you off guard, it doesn't justify subsequent betrayals. You stabbed me in the back, plain and simple. Why did you deceive me? If I had done what I wanted to do when I found out about this, things might have turned out very differently. But you are not worth risking my freedom. In addition, if Mello gets involved in the situation, it will lead to prolonged grief that will surpass any physical confrontation. Surprisingly, the anger that I initially felt has dissipated, and at that moment, I grabbed him by the shirt, dragged him into the house, closed the door, and poured out all my rage on him. After knocking him unconscious, I carried him out of the house and put him in the car. Despite the possible visit of the police, I felt a sense of satisfaction. When I returned to the house, I just needed to say that he attacked me and I acted in self-defense, and to mention his quarrel with Mello, and that he was offended with me for selling my share of the business to Mello, and now he's trying to punish me for it. The next day, I submitted 14 job applications and contacted my lawyer to find out how the case was progressing. He informed me that the hearing on the temporary restraining order is scheduled for next Monday, but he has not heard anything from Laura or her lawyer. I thought about contacting Laura, but eventually decided against it. The longer she waited to hire a lawyer, the longer I could put off talking to her. During the week, I received a lot of responses to the resumes I sent. On Wednesday, I flew to Atlanta for an interview, and on Thursday, I went to Baltimore. Both interviews went well, but I also received interest from a San Diego company. Intrigued by the idea of living in a warm climate, I scheduled an interview for next Tuesday. A hearing on the temporary restraining order was held on Monday, and to the surprise of everyone present, the judge decided not to support it. I was required to allow Laura access to the house during the hearing. Laura, who had her lawyer with her, came up to me and tried to talk. I quickly pulled away and found my lawyer, after which I returned to her side. I made it clear to her that she should not communicate with me until my lawyer showed up. Despite this, Laura informed me that she would come to the house that evening. "No, you can't come. I have an interview today, and I won't be back until Wednesday." "Don't be shy, come back after 6, her lawyer tried to speak, but I interrupted him. "She is not allowed to be in this house unattended. Someone from the court will be there, and you can invite your lawyer there." "Unfortunately, it won't work, they won't know what she's doing. If she takes something she's not supposed to, I'll have to fight to get it back. She was not at home for 2 weeks, and she managed to survive. I think another 48 hours won't be too much of an ordeal for her." Her lawyer insisted on waiting for the judge's decision. When the lawyer turned to the court clerk, Laura intervened, telling him to forget about it and that she could wait 2 more days. Then she said, "Wait a second, Rob, we can talk." "I don't think so," and left the building. I thought the interview in San Diego had gone smoothly, and I went home looking forward to hearing some news. At 6 o'clock, Laura arrived with a representative of the law firm. A woman from the courthouse arrived shortly after, and we spent the next 20 minutes chatting over a cup of coffee. She explained that her role is to conduct surveillance for the court, make an inventory of seized items, and a list of disputed items. I assured her that it was not necessary, she can have anything she wants. But if you really think that, why are you so opposed to her? She betrayed me with a man who has been my closest friend for more than 25 years. I couldn't physically harm her without facing legal consequences, but I needed to find a way to get back at her and make her feel the pain she caused me. It wasn't much, but it was something. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. After letting Laura and the man who accompanied her from the law office into the house, I went outside to mow the lawn. When I finished work and returned to the house, I noticed that everyone had left except Laura, who was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking tea. Looking up at me, she accused me of lying, that I had donated her things to Goodwill. I might not have carried out this plan, but I got satisfaction when you expressed your displeasure that I took such actions without your consent. I was surprised to find that everything in the house belongs to her, and it will take me longer to figure it out than I expected. I took the key ring out of my pocket, pulled out the house key, and handed it to her. There is no need to move, you can pick up the house on Friday. I'll have all my stuff out by then, she asked. Why? Why did you do all this if you were just going to give me the house and leave? I explained that I was interviewing for an out-of-state job and would leave as soon as I found one. Why did I get a restraining order, and you lied about giving my stuff away? This may seem like a stupid question, but after the way you treated me, I felt I had to take some action. You should be grateful to me that I decided to solve the problem peacefully and not resort to cruelty. What I did doesn't make up for what you did to me. It was the only way to get revenge without breaking the law. I know you declined my request to talk tonight, but I'm still going to try to convince you that our marriage shouldn't be ruined. Let's be honest, Laura, there's no way we can continue our relationship after what you've done. Rob, my feelings for you haven't changed. I still love you despite the mistake I made with Jim. I've always felt sympathy for Jim, but it's never been love. I don't care if you had feelings for him, what you did was still infidelity. You need to remember how I reacted to Annabelle's actions with Jim to understand my feelings about this situation. I was very upset and planned to meet with him about it, but you convinced me not to do it. It was supposed to let you know how I would feel if you betrayed me. Don't try to justify yourself, they say I didn't want you to find out. Cheaters are always caught sooner or later, just like Jim found out about Annabelle when someone saw them together and told him. That's how you got caught, someone saw you and Jim go into the motel room and told me. Is my love for you not important at all? I'm sorry, Laura, but that's not a valid reason. Your love wasn't enough not to cheat on me. It may seem like nothing to you, but it meant everything to me. How can you call being close to my ex-best friend an accident? He came when you were in Santa Fe, upset about Annabelle. He missed her, even though he cut her out of his life. We had a drink, and soon he started crying. I hugged him, comforting him, even though I knew it was wrong. It was nice, even though I knew I was wrong. When Jim visited you while you were away, we both understood the reason for his presence. We resumed our physical relationship, devoid of any emotional connection. It was just a contact, Rob, a fleeting thrill in everyday existence. Despite everything that has happened, I have never neglected you, Rob. I love you deeply, and you know it. I sincerely believe that we can overcome this and not resort to divorce. Laura, our love has nothing to do with this. I need to end this marriage. I can't go on living with a woman who betrayed my trust. It's a simple fact, Laura, you betrayed me. If I had stayed, I would have always suspected and expected you to hurt me again. You admitted that you like cheating, so I can't stay with you anymore. You can make any promises, but I can't trust them. You already broke your promise to put me first when we got married. I can't believe anything you say, Laura. Jim's version of events is completely different from yours. According to him, it wasn't an accident, but you were playing games with him. I do not know who to trust, but after what happened, none of you are trustworthy in my eyes, Laura. The truth is, we're not a couple anymore. I'm not going to give up, Rob. I intend to fight for our marriage. Our love will help us get through this difficult time. I understand that you're mad at me, and you have every right to be, but I promise you that I will keep my word, especially after I realized the consequences of the violation. My lawyer suggested that I get a consultation, which I think may be useful. I refuse to let you go, Rob. I love you too much. I want to make it clear that I'm not ready to be with you. It's true that I still have feelings for you, and it's going to take me a while to move on, but I can't imagine that you and I will have a relationship again. Just the thought of being intimate with you brings back painful memories of how you were with my best friend. I cannot accept such betrayal. If you prevent the divorce, I will have no choice but to share the video of your meeting with Jim. All your loved ones will see it, including family, friends, and colleagues. I will even go so far as to create a porn site with your participation. There are many amateur sites where I can upload videos with your full name and address. It will definitely bring a revival to your life. You're lying, Rob. This video doesn't exist, really? Wait, I took a copy of the CD out of the briefcase in the closet, returned to the kitchen, and handed it to her. Look at it. After you look at it, decide if you want others to see it. I have some business to settle, so please leave. You can pick up your house on Friday. I spent Thursday and Friday packing up my things and putting them in the storage room. Then I rented a room in the executive suite for a month, hoping to find a job by then. Over the next 2 weeks, I attended interviews in Salt Lake City, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Chicago, and Detroit. Despite the fact that all the interviews were positive, unfortunately, I did not receive any follow-up responses. After sitting down at the negotiating table, I analyzed my finances and realized that I could live without a job for about 6 years. I started exploring different cities and states in search of a lower cost of living that could potentially extend my financial situation to 8 or even 10 years. Laura signed the divorce papers and sent them back to my lawyer. I was a little sorry that she did it. I would have loved to scatter her and Jim's CDs all over the house, but a deal is a deal. I made an agreement. The agreement provided for a 50-50 division of property, with each party having to pay the legal costs themselves. As the sole plaintiff, I have paid the legal fees. Laura expressed interest in keeping the house for herself, and my half of the capital exceeded the amount owed to the bank, so I agreed. Although I had to share half of the proceeds from the sale of my stake in the company with Laura, I foresaw this and agreed. Despite the fact that Laura criticized the sale price, it did not bother me, since most of the proceeds from the sale were safely stored. I recently heard intriguing gossip. Allegedly, as soon as I disappeared from sight, Jim began harassing Laura to such an extent that she had to file a restraining order against him personally. I found it amusing, but I mentally vowed to wait for an official divorce before taking any steps. Finally, I started getting calls from the companies where I was interviewed. A company from San Diego contacted me and asked for a meeting to discuss my return. No sooner had I scheduled it than Gary Mello called me. "Do you want your company back?" he asked, confusingly. I asked him why I should return it if I had sold it to him to escape Jim. Why would I become his partner again? I thought. After our last fight, I told him, "If you are so unhappy with me as a partner, I will buy out your share and sell your half to someone else." After thinking for half a minute, I asked what price he wanted to get for his share. "I'll settle for half of what I paid you," he replied. But the main question is, why should I return it? If you have carried out at least half of your plans to sabotage Jim, then the value of the company has most likely decreased significantly. You may have a surprise waiting for you. We'll meet at the office to discuss further. Wasting no time, I decided to talk to him. As soon as I entered, Maria enthusiastically got up from the table and hugged me. Sticking her head in the office door, she informed Gary of my arrival. "As you already know, I bought out your share to annoy Jim, but otherwise, I didn't need it," I explained. But my priorities have changed. Construction is becoming more and more important to me, and I want to distance myself from the engineering side of things. I was faced with the problem of finding suitable engineers, which made me reconsider my options. It occurred to me to contact you and suggest the idea of creating a company with which I could subcontract engineering work. After Jim sold me his share, I started thinking about selling it to you. I just can't afford to buy back my half and Jim's half. The value of the company has decreased significantly, so you wouldn't have to pay a large amount for it. I've already transferred all the construction work and equipment to my other company, leaving only the engineering aspect. I'm ready to sell you the company for the same amount that I paid Jim, and we can sign a 5-year design contract. In addition, the company still maintains agreements with 15 other enterprises. It seems like a win-win situation. How much money did you offer Jim? Gary asked. He named the amount, which turned out to be less than what I had in my foreign account. But there is one condition, he added. What is it? I asked. I was extremely honest with Maria and told her about this offer. She said that if you agree, she will stay with you and will not transfer to my company. If you accept this offer, she will remain your partner. I made a quick decision and informed him that I agreed to the deal, but on the condition that I wait until my divorce was formalized, which was at least 3 weeks away. Gary agreed, and we completed the deal. As I was leaving the office, Maria reminded me, I heard about your agreement. Don't forget that after these 3 weeks, I have to become a priority. I doubted the seriousness of her intentions, but she assured me with a bright smile that she was really serious. As I was pulling away from the curb, the phone rang, and my lawyer was on the line. Jim finally realized the consequences of his actions after Gary decided to sue him, prompting Jim to offer a settlement agreement. Without hesitation, I instructed my lawyer to accept this offer. Arriving at my executive suite room, I couldn't help but smile at the prospect of starting a new chapter in my life. In just a few weeks, I will embark on a new journey with a new job, a new partner, and some financial security. Instead of worrying about finding a new home and buying furniture, I will be able to focus on the exciting opportunities that open up in front of me. Who says the good guys always finish last? In the end, I did not feel sorry for Laura. I realized that revenge must happen. I posted a video of her and Jim having sex on 10 websites and attached Laura's name and contact details. This will allow her to become more popular.